Well, I had a fancy neurologist in Cincinnati tell me I was making the whole thing up.
I've heard that. I've heard that so many times.
I was like, oh my gosh, so this is a 5-year charade, because it was like 5 years in. I said, so
Yeah.
I have been pretending every day for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your hosts, Rob and Ashley.
Yeah, I was so upset. It was like, this is not all in my head. Well, it is because it's my brain, but no.
Right.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
People don't know a whole lot. So anyway, then I came out with a second book, but it's essentially the first book just pared down because the first book is a little bit pricey because of all the photos and it's a coffee table book. And so I've found that a lot of people would want to buy it and they're like, oh, well, I'll have to wait and get that later. So then came up with a paperback version, which is just my story without the second half. And it's just about half of the photos. And also we re-edited it just a little bit so that it's less specific to brain injuries and more just about kind of, it can be a little more adaptive just to trauma in general.
Yeah.
Because I feel like all the practices that I'm doing are good for other people too, not just people that can't remember or have had.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like that you can apply some of these strategies for healing through a brain injury to other traumas as well.
I agree. So then we came out with a few note cards that say sending you a little bit of magic, because the practice that I do, I call it finding everyday magic. So, and then I also have these little note cards. Not note cards.
Those are the ones that I'm excited about.
Yeah,
show these off.
Yeah, these little inspiration cards. And so I've got one open over here already. This is my deck. So it's all the photos are photos that I've taken. And then the quotes are, like I said, something from the book or something that when I was looking at the thing, it's kind of like reminiscent of the thought that I was having. And I like to think that these are all original quotes, but, like I said, people like great minds think alike. So, but
hey, that's a great way to look at that.
Yeah, I'll draw one. Here, I'll draw this one. So this is a little seed that's just sprouting, and it says, even if the plan is only to begin, go ahead and begin. Beginnings are a beautiful place to be. And so that's kind of saying just go ahead and jump, and the net will appear. Just go ahead and begin. That's kind of what I did with, moving to the country and writing a book. And essentially my whole life since brain injury has been a lot of just like taking little leaps of faith. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just little jumps.
I think that's one thing that can really apply to a lot of people's lives. I didn't set out to be a podcaster. I complained because there was nothing like this that I kept looking for. And my therapist, she said, then why don't you do it?
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not a podcaster. And here we are a year later, and I'm talking to all these fabulous people every week. So
I know. Yeah, I checked out your podcast that when Heather introduced us a few weeks ago, I guess, or a month ago. And
I think so,
you're talking to some really neat, interesting people. And I watched a couple of them and a lot of similar stories. And there is always this little thread that runs through for all of us, even though everybody's stories are so different or the origin of the nature of the injury. But yeah, it's so good to find a community of people that understand what you're going through, especially when you
Yes.
have doctors or other people say, like the doctor saying, oh, that didn't happen, that's all in your head, or
Hmm.
somebody saying, well, you look great, you must feel fine, you must
Yeah.
be all better. And it's like, no, I'm
Right.
not. I'm not okay at all. I'm falling apart. So it's I love that you're community building and healing yourself at the same time.
Yeah. It's been very therapeutic.
I'll
And
bet.
you said something that resonated with me just now because when Heather was creating um, the bookmarks for my book it just came out, she says, "What do you want to do on the back of it?" And I said, "You know what I want to do? I want to put some things down that are to educate people of what not to say to a brain injury survivor." Because the very first one on the top of the list is, "You look fine."
Hmm.
Which, I mean, a neurotypical person thinks that's a compliment. It's really not.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just because I could put my lipstick on does not mean that I am healed.
Right.
Oh,
You would not go up to somebody that's missing both arms and go, "But you look great."
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's just re-educating people of what to say.
Well, and when people say, oh, I forget things all the time too.
Yes,
You
that
know,
that one's my number two.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I've said a lot of things that I'm sure were not great in the past, to
Hmm.
people because I didn't understand their experience, you know.
Right.
Um, but now, yeah, that whole I forget things too, and it's kind of like, oh, thanks, but it's not like, but to the degree, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
absolutely, it was a very terrifying experience. I felt like I got a glimpse into what dementia or Alzheimer's is kind of like in those early
Yeah.
years. And it was
Hmm.
terrifying. And I felt like when people are like, oh, I forget too. I know they meant well, but I just felt like
Yeah.
you have no idea.
They really don't. And,
And
and
there's
and
so
like you
much
said, they're saying it to be to try to make you feel better, but
Mhm.
really it doesn't make you feel better. I mean, everyone forgets something at some point in their lives. Before I hit my head, I'm like, oh, where did I put my glasses at? Oh, they're up here on the top of my head.
Mhm.
It's just because you're absent minded sometimes. But
Yeah.
being absent minded has absolutely nothing to do with having a brain injury.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, the strangest experience I would never wish on anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful to be sitting here 10 years later. And I feel like I'm still getting better.
Hmm.
But I feel more like myself than I have since the accidents. But I'm so grateful to have had this second chance. And it really was, really it's a wake up call to like live your life the way you want to and do the
Hmm.
things and, you know, I don't know, take bigger chances and just say, oh, well, it could all end tomorrow. And so for the last 10 years since my brain injury, I feel like I have been living the life I want to live. So now, should something
Yeah.
catastrophic happen to me next year, I'd be like, oh, well, because I have enjoyed the heck out of the last decade of my life. And I don't think I would have had the courage or the guts, or been impractical enough to just say, screw it, and lived such an impractical dream of being an artist that lives in the woods, off grid in a tiny house. And the brain injury actually gifted me that
Hmm.
ability to just say, oh, well, you know, I got to do it for my survival. And I also have to do it because I know what it's like to not have a life. Because I felt like, for more than a handful of years, I have like no recollection of really anything. It's just like this. It's been 10 years, but it feels really more like 4.5 because there's such
Yeah.
big holes. And I can't. if I see a photo of something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. But I still have a hard time just like reminiscing, like just
Yeah.
sitting back and being like just conjuring up thoughts in my head. I have to stay
Hmm.
focused on a project or something specific, or I can't just like, I don't know. So this lifestyle works great for me.
Yeah. I have to say, you're the way you look at things is kind of parallel to how I look at them. Because a lot of people will be like, "What? Why are you so thankful for a brain injury?" You know,
Hmm.
I mean, do I want the brain injury? No, absolutely not. I don't like living in pain every single day of my life.
Hmm.
However, on the flip side of it, it's what it's taken away. It's also given a lot of other things. It's removed a filter from me,
Yeah.
which is good and bad.
Yeah, I know.
Let's be
I
honest.
understand that
There's
statement.
downfalls.
Yes.
Because my wife would constantly say, "You can't say things like that." And I'm like, well, shoot, sorry. So
Yeah, no. I understand that. My filter was broken for a long time too.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's there's pros and cons to everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I'm thankful. I have so many more friends now than I did prior to my brain injury, and I feel like I have true friends.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that are still standing with me after the brain injury.
Mhm.
Those are the friendships that I really cherish, and then the
Yeah.
new friendships that's blossomed from it as well. You know,
Yeah.
and I've got friends from all over the world now, the United Kingdom and Australia, and
That is
even
so
friends close.
I know. And you're going to be coming out here, I hope,
Yeah.
next summer for the retreat, the authors retreat. And yeah, so that when you were saying that, it reminded me like my circle because of the brain injury and then also writing the book has just been like people that I
Mm-hmm.
never would have probably run into otherwise. So
Right.
yeah, it's opened a lot of interesting doors. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the other thing is the friends you do find, the friendships that truly you cherish because they're, I changed. I was a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And those people that stood by me through all of it just showed a lot of grace and space and just let me, they were like, we're here,
Yeah.
checking in occasionally. Nobody knew quite what to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was, they're still there. And I feel like if I had not had the nice little circle of friends that
Yeah.
kind of forgave me when my filter wasn't working and I was being
Mm-hmm.
very dramatic because I was just like, I can't live this way. I can't do this. I just can't handle this. And then I would just turn around and repeat the very same story like 5 or 6 times. And it just like, I mean, I'm sure it was a lot to deal with and they're still there. And so, yeah, those friendships just, I will be grateful till the end. I feel very lucky that I did have a handful of people stick by me, even though I was a real pain in the ass for a while. So,
Yeah, that's the thing with brain injuries. Everything is multiplied, like
yeah,
really amplified. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I am a dramatic person, very animated. So it really made that. And then, like you said, you lose the filter and
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
but came
But
back
look at
around.
it. Look what you have accomplished. Look
Yeah,
what you have
yeah, yeah. I feel
accomplished.
really good. I feel like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of a really weird gift.
It is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is a gift. Yeah.
Uh,
A blessing and a curse, as we
yes,
call it in
exactly.
our house, but it's more of a blessing than it is a
I'm
curse.
curious, just real quick, like, what is the best therapy that you've found? Like, mine is, nature photography. Just if I had to boil it down to like one word, um,
S- I'm going to say serenity, just
serenity.
peacefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Find it. It's hard to find a quiet place nowadays. It really is. But when you can get into your quiet zone and just concentrate on yourself, I think that's what helps me a lot.
Yeah. Well, and it is hard to find a quiet place. And so when I first moved out here, I had called this Little Wing Hollow Art and Nature Sanctuary. And it was to give people a quiet place to come. But I ended up getting on Hip Camp, and then had all these campers come, and some of them were awesome and I'm still friends with them, but had a handful of campers that kind of ruined it. They weren't coming out here to be quiet, and they were coming out to just get buck wild and tear up my property.
Oh,
And that wasn't cool.
no.
So I quit doing that, but I started hosting some retreats, like some women's events and some healing events. And yeah, I took a break for a couple years during COVID, and I had a hard time getting back into it until Heather and our publisher wanted me to host the writing retreat. And it felt so good to get back into that and to hear the comments from people about how lucky you are to have this quiet place. And just hearing you say that makes me think this may be the year that I step back into that role of providing some sort of, not just people can come whenever, but like maybe some smaller little mini events to let people come out and just have like quiet weekends, that sort of thing. I don't know how it's going to look because I definitely want to scale it down. But I would like to share this out here because it's a beautiful place. And like I've made those deer paths that I was talking about that I used to follow through the woods. I ended up making them wider. Like I had some friends help me. My one friend, Angela, did a lot of the work with me, but we ended up clearing the paths, and now I have walking paths throughout the property. And then I would have artists, including Angela, put like little art installations in the woods. And so the idea was pulling people into the woods alone, like through these paths with little things, because a lot of people are afraid to do that, or they go in a little bit and they're like, ooh, am I supposed to be here? I'm scared. I don't know. Is this allowed? And it's like, no, but if you have a little art installation or a little piece of art on a tree or something, they go, oh, I'm supposed to be here. This is safe and this is okay. And it encourages them to stop and be quiet in the middle of the woods by themselves. And so then I have something a little bit further down the way to, pull them a little bit deeper. So,
I love that.
Yeah. The quiet place. So it is important. Serenity.
It's very important. It is.
Yeah. So I think once again, it's like same but different,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to come out in September to see the place.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to have you, and excited for you to meet the other people. I think it's interesting that Heather now has 4 brain injury authors.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if Heather told you this or not, and this is probably going to be boring for our viewing audience, but I'm going to share it anyway.
Okay.
Where you're from, my dad was born there.
Oh, yeah, she did tell me that. That's crazy.
When she told me that, I said, "Oh, my dad was born there," and her mouth just went.
I know. There's not a lot.
She goes, "I'm not frozen."
Yeah. There's not a lot in Harrodsburg, so
no,
there's not. So I don't really even go into town much except for to go to, grocery shopping. But I live on the outskirts, and it's very quiet out here. I like it.
I haven't been there in ages, so I'm excited to get back. It's beautiful down there.
Yeah, well, good. It'll be a little homecoming.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up here. Me and you will continue off camera, but this has been great having you today, and thank you. I look forward to seeing you in September. And don't forget, Ashley's not here, so I have to remember my Ashley part. Don't forget to like the program, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me.